Okay, I got the spreader bar on there and basically got the weight off the engine. Whoop, wrong direction. Yeah, engine stand ain't holding anything up now, so I can get that off from there. I got Now, as I mentioned in the earlier video, I've got some wear on the crankshaft here, so I got a speedy sleeve. There's your number. This is a national. Apparently, somehow or another, Moog has gotten involved with them. It's all federal mogul. No product placement here, but I will say, I cross-referenced the white part number and found the, hey, there's the instructions. Cross-reference the white number. We actually had a cross-reference in there, and that's the number for it. And then I got online, and Advance Auto had the best price on it. And then they had some deal if you give them an email address where they can send you all sorts of, stuff. They will knock, what was it, 20% off? I don't remember the exact amount, but the short and skinny is I got that baby for 62 bucks and change, which for a thin piece of metal, they are pretty pricey. But comes with the driver tool. And I'm gonna put a little sealant on there just to seal between. And drive it on with the tool, and then you just break off this back lip. There's a line already scored in it. The reason these are so thin is you can still use the original seal. No special seal required. Yeah, this would have been a lot easier if I'd done it while the crankshaft was out of the engine. I was just test fitting the flywheel. Make sure I got that speedy sleeve on far enough, because the flywheel does flange over the crankshaft a little bit, and it did need to go a little bit farther on. Flywheel did push it, but it had to kind of draw it down evenly to get it to go where it needed to, but it's good now. So that's something to think about. You need to leave a little bit of, push it in a little past the end so the flywheel can get on. I'm glad I checked that before I got everything together, or the sealant underneath set up. So, got my seal installed in the housing. Gasket's all doped up. So let's see, it goes like this. I've got my O-ring pick. I've got Simply Lube on the lip of the seal, but I still like to walk it on with a, so that the, with a pick, so that the lip doesn't fold over. There. Oh, let's see where my holes go. Like that. There's a couple of dowel pins that seal carrier housing, whatever you want to call it. Only goes on one way. But we got her on there. Lips all the way on the speedy sleeve. So we can put the bolts in. And those are blind holes, so they shouldn't need any sealant. There is a pattern or spacing to these holes. It's not they're not equally distant, so that the dowel pins go line up and keep this housing where it's supposed to be. Right side up, there's drain holes in the bottom to drain the oil out of that area. Let it go back to the oil pan. So, to keep someone from putting it on wrong, they offset the holes so that it only goes on one. I had to find the other. All this metal tab is just metal tab. It's got little lock tabs that you fold down to keep the bolts from coming loose, which we'll see in a moment. Okay, stud definitely goes in that hole because that one goes into the water jacket. So that's why I got some sealant on that. Seal the threads up, make sure it doesn't leak through. Got a stud here, just a dowel stud to help guide the bell housing on. But I think we can get that on now. Yeah, once again, got a bolt with a head cut off ground. It matches the thread on the crank, so I can get this started much easier. I'll put a link in here. My YouTube friend Burning Dinosaurs did a nice video on the comparison of torque wrenches and extensions. A little myth busting going on there. Well, I thought I'd press record, and I hadn't. But anyways, so I've got the flywheel all torqued down. That might have been any other, but I've got the drive hub. There's splines in here. Drive the PTO, hydraulics and everything. Pilot bearing for the clutch. Got these all torqued down. And that's just taking the clutch bolts out. I'd spun them into the flywheel just to safekeeping. I knew where they were that way. I've got a old input shaft from an over and under. That makes for a great old clutch alignment tool. Here's the PTO hydraulic drive shaft. It's in good shape. It just goes in the middle there. But what I wanted to tell about, in all my travels and stuff, I've got to know a couple of the engineers that worked for Oliver and White over the years, and one was Dean Barker. He was a tractor engineer. He was telling about this shaft, and some of you guys that are into machining and stuff will probably say, duh. But, so they have the shaft, and, oh, if you got a shock load, they could snap off right here at the gear, or at the splines, usually back here. And they alleviated that problem a lot by making the shaft smaller from this is a seal surface area for the back of the over and under. Keep the oil from following up the clutch. They actually decreased the diameter of the shaft from here to here so that it was about the same diameter as the lower part of the splines. And by doing that, if you hit a shock load, the whole shaft could twist like a spring just a little bit. And instead of shearing off here, the whole thing would just kind of spring twist a little bit and then go back to where it was, and that alleviated a lot of the problem with these shafts breaking off the splines. This is the original shaft in this tractor, and for what they cost, I ain't gonna go and buy a new one. I don't use the PTO a lot on this, so I'm thinking a shock load thing is not a thing I'm gonna come into a lot, and it's probably not worth the investment. But like I say, just found it interesting. By actually making the shaft a smaller diameter, it made it stronger. Okay, I am going to drain the oil on this over and under while it's out and easy to get to, just as an oil change type thing. Oop. Come on. Kind of hard to do this and hold the camera and not miss the bucket. I did it. There we go. No chunks falling out, no glitter. That looks good, which is what I expected. I went through it and resealed it when I had the clutch out about 500 hours ago. Actually, it was a little less than that, but was not expecting trouble. But I also figured this is as easy as it's gonna get. This back plug is actually a temperature sensor. The 2155s, most of them, had a gauge in the dash to show the over-under temperature, oil temperature, and then they also had a pressure gauge to get some oil dry on that. But I thought I'd go over the over and under, at least a little bit of operating it. Generally, you can shift it anytime you want. It's a shift on the go, 3 speeds. Manual says don't skip gears, so don't go right from under to over. Going down the road, I will go directly from over down to under, because underdrive freewheels, you can go faster than the engine, but you can't go slower than the engine. It's a one-way clutch type deal. Something to definitely pay attention to when you're on hills or something like that. It can speed up on you and roll away. So you want to, if you're going downhill, you want to be in direct or over. And but the reason this doesn't match the paint on the rest of it is we used to have hogs, and we had about a 3,300 gallon manure tank. And back then, Dad would open her up and going down the road and then hit direct and hit overdrive. Well, with that much weight behind it, it didn't take it long, and it busted a planetary gear set inside of here. And enough things got ground up and chewed up. At that point, you could still get a complete new over and under. And it was cheaper to do that than to replace all the parts. Plus, we upgraded to the Super Duty. This had the regular duty, the next duty down. But build a little heavier duty at the same time. So after that, whenever we're hauling heavy loads in road gear in the field, shift it whenever you want. Whenever you want. The things are geared down enough; it can handle it. But when I get on the road, what I do is get rolling, and I'll shift up, or I'll throttle up to about 1,500 RPM and then shift up. The engine ain't putting out full horsepower. You ain't trying to jump as many miles per hour. And so the engine takes the brunt of it. It bogs down, but it doesn't put that shock load through there. Then once the engine's recovered some, I'll hit overdrive, and the engine will bog down. Then I can throttle up and give her the horses. But ever since we switched to that way, we've never had a problem with an over and under. Like I say, in the field, I shift it whenever I want and have not had any problems. But going down the road, you get a big, gravity way, and you're starting to haul several hundred bushels of grain or a big manure tank and a lot of weight, and you got it full throttle and you're 6 under and you jump to direct, you're jumping up several miles an hour all at once. And if you got lots of rubber on the ground and something has to give, and if the engine's really cranking, it's got lots of power, it's only so many times it's going to take that shift before something breaks. So, and it's probably that way. I do that with my 6125, my full power shift. I get up to full 18th gear before I give it full throttle, and that way the engine's bogging down and doing the work instead of hitting the clutches so hard. You're not putting as many horsepower through everything. The engines are designed to bog down. That's why they got governors in the injection pumps. So that's the gist on that, and that's why that one's silver and not black like the rest of the tractor. I'm gonna drop this baby back to the floor. I had it set up balanced where the engine was level without the over and under, but that's tipped too much for when I go back in the tractor. So I'm gonna set it down on blocks so I can rehook in a different balance point so it's a little more level. But other than that, she's ready to put the oil back in the hide or over under, and I haven't put the engine oil in it yet, but get oil in it and she's ready to go in. Yeah, it's just about go time. Putting oil in it. Pouring oil here in the filter base. Anything to get it pressure up as fast as possible. This is the side that goes back to the pump. You can hear it gurgling just a little bit. That tube that goes down to the pump as the air pushes out of it. That's good. Guess I don't need to make a mess. We'll put some on the other side too. Oop. That'll get some in the cooler. I put some in the filters, so they're pre-filled. Put the rest in the crankcase. I think it is time. Just doing a little walk around here. Filter on over and under. Just looking for any wrenches, anything I might have left in the wrong spot. Got the air cleaner on, just to tighten the hose on. It ain't bolted on. I see guys run engines with no air cleaner, and I can't do it. I see something getting sucked up and going into that turbo, into the engine, whatever. But, see, for now, I've got just a plug where the preheater went. Took the cable off from the solenoid for that. So that should be good. I've already, know my pump's working because I've already primed the fuel system up to the pump. So let's see, coolant is in. Engine oil is in. Over and under is good. Actually slightly over full, but that'll be good by the time the cooler and the filter fill back up. Engine slightly over full, but same thing. Got to fill the oil cooler, all the galleys and lines, and put oil in the filters, but I'm sure there's still room for more there. And I checked the rear end fluid. That's good. So I guess I'm to the point of cranking, and what I got to do is crank it open, and these are all loose on the injectors because air compresses. You got to do that and crank it over until the fuel starts leaking out around the fittings, and then you tighten them up. That gets the air out. Not too bad to do on one of these. Just the injectors are easy to get to and everything. All right. Moment. Let's see if she at least turns over. I don't know why it thinks it's turning that fast. I'm gonna have to adjust the sensor. Let's see if we got any fuel squirting out yet. I got a battery cable that's starting to smoke a little. Looks like number 1 was starting to, and it's wet around there. Number 2, looks like number 6 was starting to. Didn't take it long. It's kind of hoping the oil pressure would come up before it bled out. I guess I can still crank it some more. And there's fuel there. Or I can disconnect the shut off. Now, of course, with it being electric fuel, I'm sorry, engine oil, probably the juice is off to that when it's cranking. Then again, the tack works, so. Oh yeah, I can see fuel on top of the oil cooler. I would say it's up there. Whether to crank it some more. It's cranking it over good with those high compression pistons. And maybe I'll do her one more time just to try to get that oil pumping, and we'll tighten them down. Oh, I see the needle starting to move. I think I almost got up to the idle pressure. I think we've got oil starting to pump. So I'll tighten these babies down. We'll see what happens. Fingers crossed. See what happens. Oh yeah, burn like a kitten. Let's open up the door and let some fresh air in. Well, I'm going to let her warm up and get up to full temperature. Already sticking some warmth in the oil cooler. I thought it might have a slightly different sound with that, with a higher compression in it, but sounds like the same old tractor to me. of a diesel-y knock sound. Let's close the... Of course, I don't have the floor in. I replaced some of the power steering lines while I was apart. Looks like none of them are leaking, at least on this part of it. That'll be in another video. Not seeing anything dripping. Engine oil's starting to warm up. Coolant's coming up to temperature. Well, she's up to temp. Coolant circulating through the radiator. The hammering sound is gone. The one that made me pull it in the first place. Yep, oil's good and heated up. Still looks like oil. If I had a coolant leak or something where water was getting mixed in, it'd start turning gray, so that's looking good. I don't plan on those things, but it's always good to keep an eye out for them. Well, there we have it. She's a runner again. Wasn't spitting, sputtering, or leaking. Got her up to full temperature. I'll let it cool off overnight and come back tomorrow and retorque the heads and start putting stuff back together. Appreciate everybody following along. All the comments. Looking forward to running this tractor again. Last tractor my dad ever drove, so it's, and we bought it new, so it's got some sentimental value to me. But anyways, thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next video.